Have you ever trusted someone so deeply, so blindly, that you could never imagine them turning against you? And then, one day, the very person you would have defended with your last breath becomes the one who steals the life you had built, the love you had cherished, and the future you had dreamed of. That's my story. Before I begin, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from right now? Drop it in the comments below. And as you listen, I'd love if you rate this story at the end, from 1 to 10, so I know how much it resonated with you. Also, don't forget to subscribe, because here at Outstanding Stories, we bring you tales that dig deep into the heart, stories that make you think, cry, and sometimes even heal. My name doesn't matter much anymore because people only remember me by what I lost, but for the sake of honesty, I'll tell you, I'm Alina. Years ago, I had a life that seemed close to perfect. My parents were proud of me, my friends admired me, and most of all, I was engaged to Daniel, a man who not only came from wealth but who I believed loved me beyond the measure of money. Daniel was everything a girl could dream of: tall, charismatic, successful at a young age, and yet humble enough to make me believe that his world revolved around me. For 3 years, we planned a future together. We talked about houses by the sea, children who would run through golden fields, and the laughter of family dinners that would echo into eternity. But what I didn't see, what I never even suspected, was the shadow lurking behind me all along. My sister. She was younger than me, only by 2 years, and we shared everything growing up: clothes, secrets, dreams. Or so I thought. Her name was Lena, and she had always been the charming one. People gravitated toward her, and while I didn't envy her, I often found myself amazed by her ability to turn heads in any room she walked into. But beneath that beauty and charm was something I never wanted to believe: an envy, a hunger, a darkness that waited for the perfect moment to strike. That moment came when Daniel entered my life. At first, she was happy for me, or at least she acted like it. She smiled, teased, and even helped me pick out dresses for our dates. But every now and then, I caught her looking at Daniel in a way that made me uneasy, a way a sister should never look at her sibling's fiancé. I brushed it off as my imagination. How could my own sister ever betray me? How could blood turn into poison? The answer would come in the most devastating way possible. It was 6 months before my wedding day. Daniel and I had just returned from a trip abroad, a celebration of our engagement, and I was filled with joy. But the moment I walked into my parents' house, something felt wrong. The air was heavy, the looks on their faces guarded. And then I saw her, Lena, wearing a ring that looked exactly like mine, standing beside Daniel, her arm looped into his, as if she belonged there. I remember the words that tore my world apart, words that still echo in my nightmares. "Alina, I'm sorry, but I love Lena." My heart stopped. My own sister had stolen my fiancé, and worse, he had chosen her over me. No explanation, no warning, no guilt. They got married within weeks, and I was left broken, discarded, and humiliated. For 7 years, I carried the scars of that betrayal. I tried to rebuild my life, but the shadows of what they had done followed me everywhere. People whispered, friends pitted, and I sank deeper into a solitude I never thought I'd escape. Yet fate has a way of circling back. 7 years later, something happened that neither of them could have ever imagined, something that turned the tables in ways so shocking that even I could hardly believe it. 7 years can change a lot about a person. Time reshapes your face, it deepens your voice, it teaches you patience, but it also leaves behind scars you can never quite wash away. For me, those scars weren't just emotional. They were stitched into every part of my being. I had lost the man I loved, yes, but more painfully, I had lost my sister. Family is supposed to be a fortress, a shield against the cruelties of the outside world, and when that fortress crumbles from the inside, there's nowhere left to hide. I moved cities after their wedding, hoping distance would dull the ache. I worked hard, often late into the night, burying myself in tasks just to avoid the silence that threatened to crush me. I told myself I would never forgive, never forget, and never allow either of them to cross into my life again. Yet, as fate loves to prove, The people you run from often have a way of finding you when you least expect it. And before I tell you what happened, let me ask again. Where are you watching this story from? I love seeing the different places you're tuning in from, so type your country or city in the comments. And when this story ends, don't forget to rate it from 1 to 10, because your voice matters here at Outstanding Stories. Point 1 Ordinary evening. I was leaving work when I noticed an unfamiliar number calling my phone. I ignored it at first, but it kept buzzing, insistent. Something about it gnawed at me, so I answered, only to hear a trembling voice that sent chills down my spine. It was Lena. I froze, nearly dropping the phone. Her words came out in a rush, broken with sobs. Alina, please. I need you. Daniel, he's gone. For a moment, I didn't even understand what she meant. My chest tightened, 1,000 emotions colliding: anger, disbelief, confusion. What do you mean gone? I asked, my voice sharp, almost cruel. She whispered through tears, he died. Heart attack. Suddenly. And now, I don't know what to do. My mind spun. The man who once promised me forever, who left me shattered and humiliated, was now lying cold in the ground, and the sister who stole him from me was suddenly alone, broken, desperate. A part of me wanted to hang up, to let her drown in the pain she had earned. But another part, the one that still remembered us as children holding hands under blankets during storms, kept me listening. Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet her. I walked into that cafe expecting to see the same beautiful, confident Lena who had once charmed everyone, but what I saw shook me. Her face was pale, her eyes hollow, her body thin as if life itself had been sucked out of her. She wasn't the woman who stole my fiancé anymore. She was a shadow. And for the first time, I realized that maybe betrayal doesn't always lead to happiness. Sometimes, the thief steals a crown only to discover it's made of thorns. Lena confessed everything over coffee. Daniel hadn't been the man I once thought he was. He had charmed her with wealth and promises, but behind closed doors, he was cruel, controlling, and unfaithful. He humiliated her, belittled her dreams, and turned her into a prisoner in her own home. All those years I spent mourning my lost love, she spent trapped in a gilded cage. She admitted she often thought of me, of the day she betrayed me, and how regret ate at her like acid. Her tears fell into her coffee as she whispered, I thought I won, but I lost everything. I sat there, my heart a battlefield of rage and pity. She had destroyed me once, yet now she looked destroyed herself. Should I feel satisfaction? Relief? Or should I feel the tug of sisterhood, that unbreakable bond no betrayal can completely sever? I didn't know the answer that day. All I knew was that destiny had brought us face to face again, 7 years later, in a moment neither of us could have scripted. But that was only the beginning, because what came next was a revelation so shocking, so utterly unexpected, it would turn everything upside down once more. 7 years passed like a storm that left wreckage behind but also forced me to rebuild piece by piece, and in those 7 years, I had transformed from a fragile woman broken by betrayal into someone the world could no longer dismiss. The anger that once consumed me had been reshaped into determination, and every tear I had shed became fuel for ambition. I had taken risks, launched a business from scratch, faced humiliations, endured sleepless nights, and turned the very rejection that had once defined me into the fire that forged my resilience. Now, as I stood in a glittering banquet hall filled with chandeliers and laughter, I wasn't just a guest at someone else's celebration. I was the keynote speaker, honored for my achievements, admired by many, and no longer bound by the shadows of betrayal. But fate has a twisted sense of humor, because the very night I was being celebrated, they walked in, my sister, and the man who had once sworn his love to me. They looked just as polished as ever, draped in luxury and flashing smiles that concealed the cracks only I could see, because behind their facade lay a truth I knew deep inside. The choices they had made in their greed had left them empty, and the glow of their wealth could not mask the fractures in their marriage. Still, their sudden reappearance in my world stirred emotions I thought I had buried, anger, sorrow, curiosity, and I found myself wondering if destiny had brought us together once more, not for revenge, but for revelation. My story wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about transformation, strength, and the power to rise when everything around you has fallen apart. And yet, in that moment, as our eyes met across the hall, I knew that whatever was about to unfold would shake not just their lives, but mine too, because the past never stays buried. It waits for its moment to return, and this was mine. The moment our eyes locked across that grand hall, it felt as though the air itself shifted, carrying with it the weight of all those years and unanswered questions that had burned silently inside me. My sister, draped in a glittering gown that screamed wealth but whispered desperation, clung to his arm as though her entire existence depended on him. And he, my former fiancé, the man who had once looked into my eyes and promised forever, avoided my gaze for as long as he could, until the inevitability of fate forced his eyes to meet mine. There was a flicker there, brief but undeniable: regret, shame, and something else that unsettled me more than anger ever could. For years I had imagined this reunion 1,000 ways, me screaming, confronting, exposing them before everyone. But when the moment came, I simply stood tall, composed, knowing that the most powerful revenge wasn't in words or anger, but in showing them the woman I had become, the life I had built, the power I now held without them. Yet, as the night unfolded, the cracks in their facade became impossible to ignore. Whispers rippled through the hall, rumors of his failing businesses, debts hidden beneath their glamorous surface, and an unhappy marriage held together by appearances alone. My sister's eyes darted nervously, her laugh too shrill, her grip on him too tight. The man who once mocked me as not enough now seemed weighed down, hollow, and bitterly envious of the respect I commanded in that room. The irony wasn't lost on me. The sister who betrayed me for wealth and the man who abandoned me for status were now prisoners of the very greed they had chosen. And yet, I felt no joy in their downfall, no satisfaction in their cracks. It was something deeper, something unexpected. I realized that this wasn't about revenge anymore. This was about closure, about standing in the same room with them and finally knowing that I had won. Not because they had lost, but because I had grown beyond the need to measure my worth through their betrayal. But little did I know, this night was only the beginning, because the secret my ex-fiancé carried was about to come out, and it would change everything I thought I knew about the betrayal 7 years ago. When the truth finally unraveled, it didn't explode like a thunderclap. It seeped into the air like a slow, venomous poison, drawing every eye in the hall toward us. My ex-fiancé, shoulders slumped as though he could no longer carry the weight of his lies, stepped forward and spoke words that sent my entire world spinning. He had never intended to leave me all those years ago, not willingly. He admitted that on the night of his proposal, when love had seemed certain, my sister had approached him with something so vile, so calculated, that it changed the course of all our lives. She had told him she was pregnant, claimed that the child was his, and in his panic, torn between duty and desire, he had chosen her, believing he was protecting me from disgrace and heartbreak. My heart pounded with every syllable, but the cruelest twist came when he revealed the child had never even existed. It had all been a lie, a ploy to snatch away the life she envied in me. My sister's face drained of color as gasps filled the hall, her empire of lies crumbling before an audience of the wealthy and powerful she had sought to impress. For years, I had carried the wound of abandonment, believing I wasn't enough, while in truth, it had never been about me at all. It was about her hunger for wealth, for status, for taking what she could not create herself. And yet, as I looked at her, trembling, cornered, I realized that despite everything, she wasn't the enemy anymore. She was her own tragedy, a woman shackled to greed and deceit. My ex-fiancé's eyes brimmed with tears, his voice cracking as he admitted his shame, begging for forgiveness, not for rekindling romance, but simply for the chance to unburden the truth he had buried for 7 long years. And in that moment, I felt something extraordinary. Not revenge, not anger, but freedom. The chains of betrayal that had haunted me for so long fell away, replaced by a fierce pride in the woman I had become despite it all. The hall erupted in whispers, but I stood in silence, tall and unshaken, knowing that the story wasn't about what they had done to me, it was about what I had built in their absence. And as I turned to leave, I ask the same of you, watching my story now. From where are you joining me in this journey, and how would you rate this tale of betrayal, truth, and resilience? Your voice matters here. Share it in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe, because more stories of strength and survival await you.